Hey guys, Sean T. Phillips here. Welcome to my July 8th DVD update, where I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, guys, if you enjoyed these update videos, definitely give this video a thumbs up. Leave me comments below what you guys thought of the titles I checked out this update. Any titles coming up so guys you'd like me to review for future updates, and some of the things you guys have picked up recently. Now, the first one I got from Shout Factory Scream Factory line. This is a new one, which is a Chiller original series, one of their first actual TV series. They've done a lot of, movies for Chiller, but this is their first TV series, as far as I know. And it's a show called Slasher. It's a pretty cool, throwback slasher type show. It's basically, though, in the beginning of this movie, you see this couple that end up getting attacked and killed by this, this killer and this cool mask. A really pretty cool look to the killer in this. But basically, though, the killer ends up killing the husband, and then he ends up, the wife who's pregnant, he ends up actually killing her and then taking the baby out of her because she's pretty much right to the point of about to give birth and takes the baby out. So it's this huge case, and people all are talking about this in this town. Years later, though, the guy has been put away in jail. The girl ends up, though, wanting to basically kind of come back to this town, and she actually moves in to her old house where this happened, where her parents were killed. She never met them because it happened right before she was even really born because of what happened. But she ends up going back there with her boyfriend and moving into this house. So it's a really weird thing of her coming back. The people in the town are like, "You're going back to where this happened?" It's like, because it's kind of dismal thing about her wanting to go back there. And immediately when she starts going back to this, when she comes back to this town, people are dying off, and the kind of copycat kind of thing about like a killer that was like who killed the parents, but yet that that guy is actually in jail. She's even talking to him at some points in the show, talking to him about why he did it and everything. But it's kind of like, well, who is this person killing the people now? And like I said too, it happens the second she comes back into the town. So it's kind of people looking at her and trying to figure out exactly what has happened. At the same time too, she's kind of trying to figure out stuff about her parents since she's back in this town, trying to figure out the kind of people they were and talking to the neighbors and all this kind of stuff. And she's also discovering this tape, and it's all this kind of stuff that she's just like discovering about the parents, and maybe they weren't exactly the kind of person that people were telling her that they were. It's actually a pretty interesting series, kind of in the style of as the Scream series, but a little bit more gory and things like that though. And it has on here a behind the scenes feature. The next one from Scream Factory as well. This is one I had not seen in a long time, and I always like this because it has Mason Gamble, who played Dennis from the Dennis the Menace movie, the 90s movie, which was always one of my favorite movies as a kid. This is a werewolf movie called Bad Moon. It's a pretty cool werewolf movie, and it actually has on here the new director's cut of this, which was never released before, with like an extended opening with some more gore in it. It actually is a very, very gory opening to this. Also, really good picture on this one as well. But it's basically, though, in the beginning of this movie, this guy is like a scientist kind of guy out in the middle of the jungle, and he's with a group of these people, and this creature ends up attacking his girlfriend and killing her, and then he ends up getting scratched by this this creature out there, a werewolf type creature, and he ends up coming back to America and kind of living out in this trail out in the middle of nowhere. And his sister has not heard from him in months, and kind of discovers that he's out there nearby out in this trailer, so she ends up taking her son and husband out there to kind of see him. And immediately, though, she kind of is realizing, though, there's something kind of off about him, and he's kind of sketchy about how he's acting. The dog, though, their dog, is really noticing that there's something up with him. It's kind of like, is he a werewolf? Did he come back and this affected him? What is going on? Because at the same time, the area that he's in, people are starting to die off. And the second where it hits the news that they die off, he's like, oh, I think I'd like to come and stay with you around your area. So he comes around the area, and of course, like, what's going to happen when he does that? But I like the idea with this movie, too, that the dog character is kind of sensing something is up with this guy, and that there's something off about him, and the dog is really angry at him, and there's, like, fight scenes with him and the dog. Like, I think that's a pretty cool, different kind of take on a werewolf movie. Has on here, though, commentary track on here, and a bunch of interviews on here, too. They even talked to Mason Gamble about this movie. But I really like this movie. It's like I said, it's a cool, I feel like, very underrated werewolf movie. The next one from Arrow Video UK, and this is a UK release, so it's a Region B release. And this is a really cool, underrated slasher movie called Satan's Blade. And it has on here, too, a booklet in here, with pictures and things like that about the movie, and also has the alternate artwork for the film as well. But I really like this movie. I felt like this is like one of those ones too that not a lot of people have seen, and it's one Arrow's put out two other slasher movies that I really liked as well. You know, The Mutilator and then Blood Rage. I think Blood Rage is probably my favorite of all the slasher movies they've done so far. That was like a really crazy movie. This one, though, is really cool as well. It's all set in the snow. And it starts basically about these girls that end up robbing this bank and then hiding out in this cabin. And then the girls like plan to double cross each other and steal the money. But before they can do this, because the one kills the one, but then this masked guy ends up going and killing the other one. And then it's this couple that ends up going to stay in the cabin area. And they kind of get there and find out that, you know, the cabin they're going to be staying in, someone died the night before. But they're like, it's okay. They don't care. They just want to stay there anyway. And it's also about these girls that are staying in the other cabin, this group of these girls. They end up coming there. And the second they go there, though, you know, they're noticing that this killer is still out there. And the killer, there's like this legend about him and this knife. And it's just an insane movie because it's like this really great dream sequence in this movie. There's a really cool dream sequence and really great, you know, cheesy 80s synth. You know, I love like cheesy synth music, and this movie has that, but it's actually pretty cool synth as well. But a very cool one about this killer who's killing him out there, and just kind of people making dumb decisions about staying there even though they know someone was killed there the night before and they don't even know who it was, and the person is still obviously out there. And it has on here though a new 2K transfer in here, also has a version of the movie in a transfer as well in full screen since it was shot in full screen, but it's the widescreen one looks very good though, and also has on here a cool commentary track with this group called the Hysteria Continues. They did commentary tracks on a lot of the Vinegar Syndrome releases. I always love their commentaries. They always have good insight on the movies and just like their kind of facts and stuff about it. But a really cool release, looks really good, really great underrated slasher movie. The next one from Lionsgate. This is from the Divergent series, which I really like the Divergent movies. I like the Hunger Game movies as well. The Maze Runner, I liked the first one. Didn't like the second one that much. With the Divergent movies, though, I've liked all of them. And I've gotten consistently bigger budget-wise, too, when you compare it to the first movie. This one is from the Divergent series. This is Allegiant. It has a really cool venticular cover on this one, too. I think the last one had this kind of cool cover on it as well. But it's basically, though, to try and explain these movies is slightly complicated because it kind of spoils stuff. But basically, though, you know, Kate Winslet's character was kind of like the bad character in this movie, and because of what ends up happening to her in this part of the movie, it's basically, you know, Shailene Woodley's character kind of with a group of other people who want to actually go over, because they kind of have these factions and like people and have like different kind of factors what they're kind of into, you know, where they're kind of, if you get into this certain type of faction, you have to do this. You know, it's very hard to explain, but basically, though, there's this wall that kind of walls off the city. You're not allowed to leave this, and they end up wanting to leave this in hope of trying to find other people out there, and they kind of heard that there's not really anybody there, but they feel like there is. So it's kind of them going out over the wall, and then when they go over there, though, they end up basically, who's the actor, you know, they come across, you know, Jeff Daniels. Jeff Daniels is basically the person who's like the head of the other group that's over there that's kind of doing his own sort of thing. Like I said, it's very hard to explain, but she gets over there with him, and she kind of discovers, though, because he has this big plan of what he wants to do, and he ends up basically discovering, though, she's basically discovering, though, that maybe he isn't as good as they think he is, and maybe he has very weird, dismal plans of things that he wants to do to try and control people as well. Like I said, not at all easy to explain whatsoever, these movies, but if you know these movies, you know these movies, and especially if you know the books, you know these movies, you know the series. I actually, like I said, really like these movies. I think they're fun films, not easy to explain at all for me, but cool films if you're into these ones and you like the series. But it has on here a number of different featurettes on the movie. It has on here a commentary track, stuff on here about you know, talking about how they took the book to the film, and some Blu-ray exclusives ones on here as well. But like I said, I like the movie, but not easy to explain. The next one from Universal is Melissa McCarthy in the movie called The Boss. It's just kind of like an R-rated Troop Beverly Hills. It kind of had that kind of vibe to it. It definitely was giving me that kind of feel. It's directed by her husband. You know, he directed Tammy with her as well. But this is basically, though, about Melissa McCarthy, and she's kind of like this, I guess she's like a self-help kind of like guru kind of person that kind of has this kind of vibe, like you can do anything you want, you can make all this kind of money, and her whole business kind of crumbles from under her, and her assistant is played by Kristen Bell, and like no one really likes Melissa McCarthy's character because she's very mean. She doesn't really care about anybody else. She doesn't really care what anybody else says. But basically, her business crumbles around her, falls apart, and she doesn't, basically loses everything, loses her house, loses all of her money, and has no one will take her in. She doesn't know what to do, so she ends up basically conning her way into staying with Kristen Bell's character, who was her assistant, who wasn't her assistant anymore because he has no money to pay her. But she ends up basically staying in her apartment with her daughter and stuff like that, and it's this whole big thing. And the one day she's making these brownies, because like Mr. McCarthy's character is kind of figuring out how she's going to have her comeback and kind of scheming up what she's going to do. But the Kristen Bell's character is making these brownies for her troupe, her daughter's troupe, and then she ends up, Miss McCarthy's like, these are really good brownies, and she comes up with this whole scheme of wanting to sell the brownies and like actually profit off of the Girl Scout money and like con all these girls to join in because they have more benefits because they make more money doing it and they get to keep the money. So it's kind of like her scheming things up and also dealing with stuff with the Girl Scouts. They're not called the Girl Scouts, they're called like a different type of troop. But that's essentially what it is. It's a fun kind of ridiculous type movie. Not the all-time greatest Melissa McCarthy movie, but still a fun movie. And like I said, it's got that Troop Beverly Hills kind of vibe. Has on here a lot of features though: alternate ending, deleted scenes, alternate scenes, gag reel, and then it also has on here the original sketch that what created this character on here as well. But like I said, a fun movie with that kind of vibe of like Troop Beverly Hills. And the next one I got from Sony, it's a pretty fun movie called Elvis and Nixon. Stars Michael Shannon as Elvis and Kevin Spacey as Nixon. And it's basically though about Elvis. It's all set in one day about Elvis wanting to have this meeting with, Richard Nixon because he wants to be kind of like the ambassador of, like, kind of be put in as a guy who can go undercover and kind of like infiltrate people who are doing drugs and kind of spy on people. He has this huge convoluted idea of what he wants to do and all this kind of stuff. And it's basically though Elvis's people who are trying to set up this meeting, and they come to Washington in hopes of this happening. It's all the day of, when this is trying to happen, with them, Elvis coming to the White House, giving this letter that they give to put on Nixon's desk, and then Nixon's people finding out the letter. And it's basically like back and forth about, Elvis is only going to be around in town for this one day and they have to make this happen. And then, Nixon's people have to kind of convince him to meet Elvis. And he's like, what do I want to meet Elvis for? And then it's I don't know. That's really what it is. It's kind of like a meeting of the two, and like the day that leads up to this meeting. I thought it was pretty funny. Like I liked Michael Shannon as Elvis. I thought he did a good job. And I also thought Kevin Spacey did a really good job as Nixon. It's a take on a thing that, was, kind of like there's not tons and tons of material to it. Like I said, it was really just all what led up to this meeting this one day. But it was fun, though, watching this and also watching to the encounter when they do meet, how it goes, because it's everything that Elvis is told not to do, he does. And I don't know. I really like this. Sky Ferreira is also in this movie as well. Has on here, though, a commentary track and a featurette on the movie. But I really thought this was a pretty fun movie. The next one from Sony as well is a movie called Emma's Chance. This is one of a horse film, and I watch a lot of different horse movies, and this was actually a pretty well done one, and it's actually, I think, produced in part by the company that actually, that they, are the volunteer company where they kind of take in horses that are injured and kind of like rehabilitation and things like that for the animals. And there was this funny like donkey in there too. You actually can like meet this donkey in real life. It's like making these really funny faces in this movie. But it's basically though about this girl who, with her friends, ends up breaking into this horse kind of property, is kind of like dare each other to do it, and they get caught for doing this. So the principal ends up basically making her go and do community service of basically volunteering at this horse rehabilitation place to take care of the horses and things like that. It's kind of like her punishment. And she gets there, and it's like her, getting there originally, and she's like, I don't want to do this, and kind of really negative about the whole thing. And they're all looking at her like, oh, you don't care to be here. But it's also, it kind of leads to her starting to really like this place and really liking what they're doing. But I will say though, there were some aspects of this I was kind of confused with, because the place is having money problems and they need money I was kind of getting confused exactly how much money they needed, because she really wanted to try and find a way to raise this money to help this place stay in business. But I get the aspects of that, I was getting confused with the money and exactly how much was needed and exactly how much of a situation they were into going out of business, because this other company wanted to come in and buy the place out. But like I said, that aspect was kind of confusing, but it didn't matter. I was just like trying to figure out exactly like how much she needed to try and save this place and stuff like that. But like I said, it's basically her there though, and then she also kind of has a scuffle with her friends too, because she's more worried about this place, and they're all like, "Oh, why are you concerned about this?" and all that kind of stuff. I said I really like this. It also has who's the one person in this? Joey Lawrence is kind of the guy who's working there, and kind of becomes friends with her and helps her out as well. But it's basically though her like falling, really liking this one horse there that's kind of like the underdog horse, and that's kind of how makes her kind of like this place, and she wants to learn how to ride and stuff like that. Like I said, I really like this a lot. I watched a lot of different horse movies, and I thought this was actually a pretty good one. A decent message to it too, but like I said, kind of confused with some stuff though to it. The next one, I had not watched this movie though in years. I probably hadn't seen this since it was in theaters, and maybe I think at least probably saw it on DVD like once when it came out, maybe a year or so after. But it was kind of fun to watch this again. And this is Shrek, the anniversary edition, and like I said, I had not seen it in a long time. It was interesting though to see it now, to see the animation, to see how different animation has gotten. Because like I remember when this first came out, the animation was like amazing. I mean, like it was like top of the line. It has not aged amazing, the animation. It's still very good animation, but when you look at animation now and like DreamWorks animation now, when you look at like compared to then, and even like the later Shrek movies, it's just crazy to see what it was then and what it is now. But still doesn't take away from the fact it is a very, very cool movie. It's basically though about this ogre, played Mike Myers' character, who lives in the middle of a swamp and has no friends, doesn't like anybody, and this one, basically all the fairy tale characters end up living in Shrek's area. They all kind of come there to live because they've been kicked out of their homes, and Shrek is really angry about this, so he goes to try and to Lord Falkwy, I think that's his character's name, who's the person who kicked them out, and he goes there and try and get his land back and get these people out of where he is. And he basically says, if you end up going to this castle and getting this princess and bringing her back to me because I want to marry her, I'll get all those people out of your swamp and you'll be free. So he ends up going with his friend played by Eddie Murphy's character, who's the donkey, and they end up going on this mission to try and get her, get the princess character. I don't know. I think this is a very fun movie. Like I said, though, it is interesting, though, to see it now. It's like the picture quality and everything is great on this. It's just interesting to see how animation has changed so much over the years, and like what was like the top of the line then. That's the one thing with hand-drawn animation, though. It holds up more because it always kind of looks the same. But with CGI animation, that's the one thing. Like I said, I hadn't watched an old movie like that in a long time. So it's just interesting to see it. The next one from Paramount, this is from director, Richard Linklater, who did Boyhood, Dazed and Confused, Slacker, a number of different movies, really cool stuff. And this is, his new one called Everybody Wants Some. And this is kind of in the style of Dazed and Confused, but the Dazed and Confused, I think, was the 70s. And this one is like the early 80s, because it was kind of like the disco scene was like coming to the very end in this movie. So it's still kind of the disco-y kind of look with some of the characters. But it's basically, though, about a group of these baseball players that are kind of all living together in these two frat houses. It's basically, though, just kind of like their life, and the one guy who ends up first coming there to live with these guys. And it's pretty much just about like their adventures and trying to hook up with chicks, and their kind of situations that they get themselves into. Not a whole lot of baseball scenes, more just kind of like their life. And it's kind of like a character piece, though, on just following around these characters. And, like I said, it's got that Dazed and Confused kind of vibe. It wasn't as cool to me as Dazed and Confused, but still, if you like Richard Linklater's writing and you like the kind of characters and stuff like that, still was well done. Has on here, though, some deleted scenes that weren't in the movie, and a number of different featurette, and also a thing on here on the 80s featurette as well. The next one, this one I really like. This one is from Draft House Films. I saw a lot of positive reviews of this one, and really thought this was a pretty cool movie. It's called The Invitation. It's one of those movies, too, you're trying to figure out exactly, what is happening here. Because it's like, one of those movies you're kind of wondering to the end of everything. And it had some interesting stuff going on. It's basically, though, this husband and, this guy and his girlfriend got invited to basically this guy's broke up, divorced his wife because something had happened to their son, and he has not seen her in 2 years, the ex-wife, and he ended up running into her in a market, and she ended up inviting him to come to this big party that she was running, throwing at her house, and he's like kind of like reluctantly agrees to go with his current girlfriend. They decide to go there, but it's also very strange because, like I said, he has not seen her in 2 years. No one knows where she was. He's coming back to this house, seeing all of his old friends. It's kind of awkward because he hasn't really kept in touch with any of these friends, because once the relationship broke up, that happened with them, and he didn't really want to see them because it was kind of a reminder of what happened with the son. But when he gets there, though, there's something very off about his wife and his ex-wife and the new husband that she's with. They're acting very strange. They're seeming like there's something going on. They're like locking the door to the house, and he's taking the key out, and he's like, "What are you doing taking the key out?" And he's like, people looking at him like he's being paranoid and stuff like that. But he's there kind of noticing kind of odd stuff. And there's also John Carl Lynch's character is there, and he's kind of this really strange person who's like friends with the ex-wife and the husband, and like he's like, who is this person? What is he doing here? Because he never met him, and you finding out stuff that like dealing with the ex-wife, and she's like in this weird cult, and he plays this weird video, and it's very, very creepy what's going on. You're trying to figure out exactly what is happening here, and is this the ex-husband being paranoid, or is there something really wrong going on here? But this is one of those movies, like I'm not going to say too much more about it, but it was really cool, and like the end of it I loved. Like it had some interesting stuff happening. It was a very, very cool movie, very creepy, kind of like not a typical kind of movie. Not like you're not going to expect everything that's happening in this, but it has on here though a making of on this one as well, and a commentary track. The next one from Anchor Bay is one called The Vigilante Diaries, and this has Jason Mewes and Michael Madison in this movie, and it's basically though about this guy who's like this vigilante who's like kind of with the special forces and kind of broke off and like did kind of stuff when he went on his own, and was kind of taking with also this group of people, and he was basically killing bad guys and like kind of settling his own kind of justice. And Jason Mewes' character kind of is the camera guy for him and kind of made him go viral. But the guy who's the vigilante ended up killing the wrong person, and like the family is kind of coming after him and trying to track him down, and like basically anyone that has connection to this vigilante is like in trouble. So Jason Mewes, who was like the camera guy, he ends up finding himself in trouble for what ends up happening. So the group of the people that are trying to find him are trying to come after Jason Mewes. So it's kind of this huge thing going on about these people, and then the original people who are with the vigilante, they're all coming out of the woodwork too, dealing with trying to stop these people that are coming after them. So it's one of those huge like things that was just gigantic to do. It's a real throwback kind of action movie. Fun for Jason Mewes. That was the main reason I really wanted to see this, because of Jason Mewes. I thought he was actually pretty cool in this. A little bit of a different kind of role for him. It still had a comedy kind of aspect to it, but like, because he was more of the kind of over-the-top comedy kind of character in the movie, but still, he was doing more of different stuff than I had seen him do before. Like I said, this one is The Vigilante Diaries. The next one, this is one I had wanted to see for a while. Debbie Rochon directed this movie. She's more known as a scream queen, more of an actress. It's the first film she directed, and it was actually a pretty cool movie. And Lynn Larney is in this movie, and same with Tiffany Chabas. And Lynn Larney's character has this amazing, like, internal monologue when she meets the character. She's like thinking, she sits there like she's like this real nice woman. That's what other people are thinking, but she's thinking all these horrible things about the people. She's like, oh, just terrible, awful. Like, she's just thinking horrible, like really bad stuff about the people. But it's basically though about Lynn Larney's character who lives in this house. And you're finding out more and more about her past. She was like this model who was kind of like done dirty, and she kind of has hatred for other models and had hatred for anybody else, like younger women and stuff like that. And she basically cracked up because of something that happened to her when she was younger, and she's killing people and eating them, and people that come to the door she ends up killing and eating. And Tiffany Chabas' character moves in, and I must say it was kind of funny though, because Tiffany Chabas has this husband in the movie that is like this way older husband, and it was just like something funny to me about this because this guy was so much older than her, and like it never came up at all. It was just, I don't know, I just found that funny just a little bit because the guy was like this really old guy to be the husband, but because it was like, wait a minute, she was with him. I don't know. It was just that I couldn't stop thinking about that part of it, to be honest, and especially too when when something happens to him and she had to act like she cared. And I don't know. I know that to me was just striking me slightly funny, just a little bit. But basically, though, she's kind of noticing that there's something going on across the street with Lynn Larney's character. People are kind of coming into this house and kind of vanishing, and Lynn Larney though takes this to the extreme levels though of playing this crazy woman. Like I don't know, I thought she was really good in this, and it really gets some kind of twisted stuff at the end. Kaylee Williams, who I know was in this movie, I don't know. I like this movie a lot. I thought this was actually pretty good. Has on here, though, a commentary track, deleted scenes on this one as well. And actually has a hidden Easter egg on here as well. Because I always like when you see that on stuff. You don't see hidden Easter eggs in movies very much. When you do, it's always cool to see. The next one is this is another one I had wanted to see for years. I saw the trailer to this a long time ago. It has Corey Feldman and Eddie Furlong in this movie. And it's called The Zombie King. And it's a movie shot in the UK. They went out to do out there, and it's basically though you find out like it's the group of these three guys who are like kind of like the one guy's a mailman, like the milkman, and a police officer, kind of like running through the kind of countryside area and these houses areas, and they're kind of being attacked by these zombies everywhere, and they're trying to find other people that are alive. But you come to find out though that Eddie Furlong's character did something that kind of stirred up to make all these zombies kind of come back because something happened to his wife, and he messed around with something which basically kind of encouraged this all to happen. And Corey Feldman's character, he's not in this movie a long time, but what he does in this movie is great. And he takes this crazy level where he's like, "You hear me and take me for what you did. You asked for it and you never get it." Like you could tell he was like really enjoying playing this like crazy, peculiar character. It was like a very peculiar character, and what he was doing was crazy. And at one point he like makes Eddie Furlong's character fly back, and I don't know. I love this. Like I love their stuff. Their scenes were my favorite stuff just to watch, and especially Corey Feldman stuff when he came in near the end and what was going on. But it's kind of these characters trying to figure out exactly what is happening and why these zombies are coming like that. It's got kind of a vibe of Shaun of the Dead kind of feel to it. The next one, I just finished watching this one, is from Hanover House. It's a movie starring Lance Henriksen called The Dark Awakening. And it's this family that ends up moving into this old house. Well, they don't really move into the house. The one's mother ended up passing away there, so they kind of go back there to the house where this had happened and kind of cleaning things up, trying to figure out if they're going to stay there and move there or they're going to sell the house off. But the second they come into this town, though, realize there's something really odd up. Something has happened to the children of the town, so you only really see all these old people. And they go there and they have their son with them, this younger son. And everyone in the town is like mean mugging him. They're looking at him like this, like giving him these really weird looks, like all the old people were giving him all these horrible looks. It kind of like was the way I felt if I was like when I was like my heaviest, like going to certain places. It was kind of like I felt like the way people, I always felt like people were looking at me. It was that kind of thing. They were really mean mugging him. But they end up going into this house. The second they get there, this kid discovers this weird walled off room, and then he starts seeing these like weird ghostly children, and the parents are all freaking out about the whole thing. They're going, yeah, when I was younger, I had one imaginary friend. I didn't have a whole group of them, because he's seeing all these kids. And Lance Henriksen's character plays the priest, and he's kind of coming around. It's kind of just trying to figure out exactly what's going on, because there's all kind of weird stuff too that involves the kids. Like there's rusty toys all in the yard, and it's kind of just trying to figure out what has happened in this town and where did all the kids go and why is he seeing these ghostly kids, the son. But it's a pretty creepy movie though. I thought it was actually pretty good, and just trying to figure out what was happening in it. The next one, this is a new Chris Seaver movie. This is from SRS Cinema, and this is the second of these movies. It's they made Sex Squatch 1. This is Sex Squatch 2, Teen Ape versus Sex Squatch, and it's actually the Teen Ape character. If you know the low budget pictures movies, the Teen Ape character was in a lot of Chris Seaver's early films. Has come back to be in this one, and it's a pretty fun movie though. Like I like the last Sex Squatch. It's like this crazy, like strange Sex Squatch that basically like has sex with and kills people. And if you know Chris Seaver's movies, low budget pictures, and his new line of films, they're crazy, over the top, ridiculous levels of stuff, and I've always liked them. I actually worked with Chris on 2 films in the past. I always like his stuff, and it's basically though about the Sex Squatch's comeback, and Teen Ape now is with his friends, and he's trying to plan this kind of big party together with them. and the Sex Squatch is, you know, coming after them because they're the same characters that were in the last Sex Squatch movie, but they've come back to life through a warlock. But he wants to come back and kill them again and do what he did to them last time around. And it's kind of ridiculous, the whole thing about them throwing this party and him coming after the friends and stuff. Like I said, I really like his movies. I've always liked his movies, and I like his humor. And it's really, there was a couple really funny, laugh out loud kind of, you know, lines in this movie that really were great. The next one, though, is from Cleopatra Records, and this is Devil's Carnival. This is the second Devil's Carnival movie. I don't know if I saw the first one or not. I think I might have seen some clips of it online, but this is called the Devil's Carnival. Devil's Carnival, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, like Hallelujah, Alleluia. I think that's what, you know, sometimes I always pronounce things wrong. I think I'm saying it right. But like I said, this is the second film. And it has on here, though, this is the Blu-ray release one of this. And it has the DVD copy of this as well. It even has a thing in here like a ticket to, you know, the show. And these are pretty cool movies. It's like a musical type one. The director also did, Repo, the Genetic Opera. So it's kind of in that style of like a musical type horror movie. And it's basically, though, like the devil is like down below and he's kind of got these minions of people who are singing these songs. And, you know, God character, they kind of have like a war with each other, and it's very, very difficult to explain it. But if you like musical kind of horror movies and you like Repo and you like that kind of a film, I thought it was actually a pretty fun movie. And it actually has on here a lot of different features. It has on here a commentary track, and then it has a long making of about how they did this film, and then it has because he would travel around with the film and take it to different locations where he would watch it with the audience. It was like one of those movies too. It was a big audience participation kind of film, and he would, you know, it kind of has a feature on here too about showing it at different locations, and then a thing on here about making the music. But like I said, this is Devil's Carnival, Alleluia. And the last one is from a company called Film Chess Media, and it's Hell Hunters, which is a pretty interesting, like, really, I feel like hardly ever talked about 80s like action kind of film. It's basically, though, about this, it's like this weird Nazi scientist who's like doing these weird experimentations with spiders and trying to kind of make people into Nazis and stuff like that. And it's this one woman who ended up basically marrying this guy to basically marry the guy because he knew that he had contacts to this Nazi scientist. So he kind of she goes there to try and track him down. But the woman ends up basically getting killed, and her daughter ends up basically coming to try and figure out what had happened. And she goes back to this area and discovers, you know, what is going on here. And then she's kind of getting taken, you know, the people who killed the parents, you know, killed the mother, are basically trying to come after her. It's kind of her trying to figure out what she's going to do kind of thing. You know, fun, cheesy 80s type music in this one. And has on here, it's the new transfer of the movie too, so it looks actually very good. But anyway, though, guys, that's all for this DVD Blu-ray update video. Thanks again for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.